All right, here we go. Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here tonight here at the Lone Tree Civic Center. We have tonight, we have a special guest, Jessica Vallia, who's going to be presenting on Introduction to Modern Family Portraiture. Jessica, I'll say thank you, everybody, here for joining in person. Also, thank you to those who are joining online. I see still a couple more just came in here a few minutes ago on that. Really appreciate it. And it's super special. Thank you to Jessica for coming up from all the way from Fountain. So it's a little bit, what, about 20, 30 minutes south of Colorado Springs. So I made the big commute to come up here and really appreciate it. Just want to go through, I'll more on Jessica here in a few minutes, but I just want to cover a few of the other upcoming events that we've got. We have, let's see, I've got July 3rd, we have our next competition night. And this is a themed competition. The themes are environmental portraits and high key. I'm going to try and define those here real quickly in that. So environmental portraits, some of the things that Jessica will be covering tonight are, how to light and how to take pictures of family portraits. A lot of those techniques could also be used to take environmental portraits. Ideally, the environmental portraits would not just be, say, of a person or a family, but it would be people doing the things they do, whether it's, part of like a branding thing that people do for their business, if it's taking a picture of your dentist the next time you go to a dentist appointment, if it's the bartender at the bar that you go to, or whatever it might be. But it would be a person in their element doing the things that they do in their element. But again, some of the things that we'll learn tonight can translate over into to the environmental portrait type thing. High key, I think there was a question here tonight as far as, what exactly is high key. See if I can define that one because I didn't write it down. But it would be, a lot of times you would take a photo of a subject and it would be something where you're going a little bit higher on the exposure than you otherwise would. A lot of the parts of the scene are going to be lighter, kind of airy, kind of, almost white, if not almost very close to pure white. But the scene would have a lot of that. So it's a real light. A lot of times it works really well in black and white photography where you get your whites very high on the white. There's more white than black in those type images. And I think, does that sound like a accurate version of what you would think of high key? Okay. So that would be what we would see in a typical high key image in that. So those are the two themes. Again, on our competition nights, 4 images, up to 2 color, up to 2 black and white. But when they are themed, they're supposed to follow those 2 themes in that. Again, that is on July 3rd, so first Wednesday in July. The next event that we have is, and this is an interesting one, see if I can cover this one well. We have our annual, usually we always have an annual scavenger hunt that Bruce Ryman organizes. And this year he came up with a real creative way to do it. And it's a 50-day photo project. Doesn't mean you have to take 50, images all 50 days. But you have 50 days to get that done, which is already started. And we started on that on June 1st. And it goes through July 31st. You have to have all your I say all of 4 images in.
July 21st.
July 21st. Sorry. Okay, July 21st. So we still have plenty of almost a month, or a little over a month. But take images throughout that period. The idea with it being again a photo project, and there's a lot of different ways to figure out what that photo project might be. I've got a couple of examples here. We've got out on our website, there's a couple links that can bring you to pages that will give you some ideas in that. But there's no restriction on the project type, obviously within reason. And there's, you could have a photography project that could be, say, choosing a specific subject or specific style and shoot during that period a number of images, and that could be, shooting your kid's sporting event. It could be photographing your pet a couple times a week, maybe an intriguing tree or something like that that's in your neighborhood or nearby. It could be macro photography, just isolate and concentrate on macro photography and come up with that as being your project or your theme. Then they all come in on by July 21st, and then we have our meeting is on July 24th. and submit up to 4 images. And you can have 4 color, 4 black and white, or a mix of all of those. It doesn't have to be 2 of each or whatever. But we will have that. And then here at the Civic Center, we'll have, as we typically do with our competition nights, the members will be voting for it. And let's see, first place is an annual membership. Second place is half off of a membership. And third place is $5 off of your membership. So not huge, not huge monetary prizes, but again, it's more for the fun of it and just kind of learning to do something new, maybe something that you don't normally focus on for that period of 50 days. A couple of other things that we have coming up. We have the Darren White has offered to provide night photography workshops, or a night photography workshop to Lone Tree only members. That's September 6th, 7th, and 8th. They're going to be out in Eastern Colorado. I think most of us have seen a lot of Darren's Milky Way images and star trails. And so the focus will be on doing those out in Eastern Colorado. Kind of focuses on a lot of times barns and that out on the Eastern Plains. And when I say that, he's offering these at a really discounted price compared to what his normal night photography workshops would be. It's going to be September 6th, 7th, and 8th. You can go 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights. If you go 1 night, it's $99. 2 nights is $150. And if you do all 3 nights, it's $229. Again, that's quite a discount over what he normally does, but he's doing this for the Lone Tree members. And the exact locations he'll come up with later, but it'll be somewhere out on the Eastern Plains. They do go pretty late at night in order to, he said that, the Milky Way shots will be going up through about midnight, and then star trails and that go till about 3 a.m. But I've been out with him out in that area before, and it's a lot of fun, and he knows his stuff. Sure. So we've got, let's see, when I mentioned that we still have some upcoming, the theme competitions that we have, I mentioned already, July 3rd is environmental portraits and high key. The other themed competition night that we have is October 2nd, and that is light painting and macro. The other competitions that are not those two, I think there's 2 others, I don't have the exact dates on those, but those will be open categories that we'll be doing. Let's see. So I had a couple of things. In fact, the next open image competition is August 7th, and the judge for that one is Cheryl Opperman. And another event that we have coming up is the presentation in August 21st, and that is going to be light painting, and that's with Russell Klimas. For those who haven't done that before, it's a lot of fun. I've actually he did a deal for another group that I'm with on that light painting, and he uses some really special techniques, and it's a lot of fun. It's not just light painting as in take a wand and light something here. He's actually making designs and so forth with the lights and that. So highly recommend attending that one, and that is August 21st. And that light painting presentation, like I say, leads into when we have the light painting as one of the themes on our competition in October. Okay, so now tonight, again, welcoming Jessica Vallia. I'll go through I could go on for the next 30 minutes. I could go on for the next 30 minutes because there's quite a resume that she's built for herself and that. But Jessica is a Colorado native photographer, specializes in creative, scenic, and emotionally driven family portraits. Her passion for family photography actually comes from her love of her own family, husband, and 4 children. She's been photographing families full-time for 12 years and has been just photographing in general for about 22 years. She shares an amazing studio down in Colorado Springs near Garden of the Gods with Shannon Squires and Maria Randolph. And as far as the other credentials, this is when I could take some time on, but she's a certified professional photographer through PPA, Professional Photographers of America, a master of photographer through PPA, craftsman degree through PPA. She's currently pursuing and close to receiving her artist degree through PPA. If you see some of her composite images, they're quite amazing in that, and that's what leads to that artist degree. Has received many high awards through PPA and international photographic competitions, including multiple diamond and platinum awards. Named Colorado's General Photographer of the Year in 2020. A member of PPA Professional Photographers Guild of Colorado Springs. Most importantly, she's the vice president for the 3rd year with Professional Photographers of Colorado. And I can just say I'm truly grateful for all the hard work that she's put into the organization, including she's the conference chairperson for the conference that we have the first week of November of each year, including this upcoming year. And that she's worked really hard to put together quite a lineup that we've got for that. The other thing I want to mention too is that she's going to cover tonight the introduction to family portrait photography, but she has a full 2-day workshop in Colorado Springs on all aspects of portrait and marketing of families. She'll cover that a little bit later in that, but that's the weekend of July 27th and 28th. This is the first time I think I've had 3 pages on my notes that I bring to this. I'm on the 3rd page anyways. And so as a personal testimonial, I can say that I didn't really have any interest in photographing people a few years back. And what changed that was I went to a 1-day photo workshop that she did for professional photographers of Colorado. And when I came back, from that, the later part of the day, she did some hands-on outdoor, we all had our own cameras and she had families there as models. And I came back with images of people actually, and they were far better than anything that I had ever taken before of photographing people. So that's anyways my personal testimonial on that. And the other thing that she just did, she just got back from Texas School, which is part of the other organization in that. And she had a sold out class, I think close to 30 attendees, was it? And she did the pre-con class there, this again at Texas School. And just from those that I heard feedback on that class was amazing. So with that, I'm going to do here real quickly. We've got some awards from the last competition that we had. We'll do those real quickly, and I want to make sure I leave enough time for Jessica to.
Oh, you're fine. You take as much time
to
as you
roll
want.
forward with the program. Let's see here. I'm going to start here with. So we usually start with beginner, intermediate, color. We have he's in order here. Judges Award, and that is Kathy Allen Shin for 3 as a Crowd. First place, we have Bruce Ryman with a long title on this one. Do you love my feather hat? I guess it's not that long. Congratulations, Bruce. Second place, we have Tony Lazzari with Skylights. Third place, we have Gary Hubble. He's online. Congratulations, Gary, with My Ride. And then we've got honorable mention with Bruce Ryman, Playing with Lunch. So congratulations to those who won those. Let's see here. I'm going to go to Advanced Color. And we have Judges Award. That one goes to Bruce Norman with a water drop fashion show. Congratulations. First place, we have John Bumgardner with Charging Hippo at Dusk. There you go, John. John's here tonight. Congratulations. Second place, also Bruce Norman with Water Drop Fashion Show. Third place, Jane Richards with Calculating. Congratulations, Jane. And we have, let's see, honorable mention. That goes to Quirino Zaragoza with Morning Forage. Okay, now we go to somewhere here. There we go. Beginner, intermediate, black and white. We have Judges Award. That goes to Jeff Scott with Poncho and Steph. First place, we have Bruce Ryman with Make My Day. Congratulations, Bruce. Second place, we have Scott Bourne with Regal Hall of Silence. Put these in order later. Third place, Tamara Ripley with Winter's Long Shadows. And honorable mention, Tamara Ripley with Majestic Stare. The last category, should be one envelope still with boards in it. Okay, here we go. Advanced black and white. We have Judges Award, and that is Susan Longer with Early Morning Fog. First place, Crystal Craft with Moonshine. Second place, Karina Zaragoza with Great Blue Storm. Third place, we have somebody who got lucky. See if I can pronounce it. Michael Rhino with Pikes Peak View. And honorable mention goes to Jeff Woodward with The Uphill. So congratulations, everybody, with the awards, and thank you for participating in last month's, or actually this month's image competition.
Well, thanks for having me again, guys. It's great because I know a whole bunch of people in here and I don't know some of you, so
What's it? She has a microphone here.
at least I know that Corey is going to throw stuff at me if I start to nod off at all, so. Okay. So I'm not going to read all of these in any way. Michael tried to read all of them himself, actually. But I'm Jess. I actually go by Jess. My business name is Jessica. It just sounds more professional, but I've been in and out of photography for 23 years. I am a Colorado native, which I am very proud of because in the Springs, there aren't very many of us. I'm actually I was born in Boulder until I was about 12, and then I was in Berthoud until I was just out of high school, and then in the Loveland, Fort Collins area until I met my now ex-husband, he went military, so we were in the Springs. So that's some of my professional things. Michael said all of them already though, so we don't need to go through them. I did take out a slide about about me. He did mention that my why for being in photography is my kids and my family. There's a whole slide about it, but sometimes I tear up and then I get sad. Oh, see, there's no slides at all, so that's fine. I have a blended family. So my husband and I each have one of our own sons, and then we have 2 daughters together. And I found about a couple years into having our oldest daughter that families was where it was at. I really thought I wanted to be a big fashion photographer and work with all of the stars. I don't know where I thought I was going to find them in Colorado, but that was the plan. So, everybody's young at some point. And after having a couple of kids, I really changed what I wanted to do. And I was like, creating memories that last for families is something that I really absolutely wanted to do. And then I'm an introvert, and I had to figure out how am I going to make friends with people that I don't even know how to talk to. So that was a whole thing that I had to get over. We're not going to learn that today. There is no learning that today. It took 2 years to figure that out, and a lot of really uncomfortable experiences. But actually what I found out is that if you just make all of your clients your friends, and it doesn't matter what genre of photography you're working in, you just talk to them, right? You just talk to them like they're your friends. And then I actually got into teaching, and that is probably the most instrumental thing that I've ever done for myself to transform my career. You teach people something that you want to learn. And I think every time I teach something, I also learn something. So what's in my bag? That's usually the question I get asked at the beginning of every presentation. If you're a Nikon shooter, you've made the right choice. And I know some of you already. I know who made the right choice. The rest of you, well, we can't all make the right choices, but I did finally go mirrorless last year. I'm still trying to figure all the buttons out though, so I look really dumb while I'm shooting my Z8. I am trying to figure it out. You would think it's not that different, but it really is. And I am a huge fan of Sigma art lenses. I've had, I think, 3 135s now. I'm really rough with my gear because I'm just up on mountains and I dual shoot cameras and they bang together. Corey's witnessed it. It actually made somebody else we had with us nervous and he couldn't watch anymore. So, um, and I actually love shooting with my 50mm, which people are shocked about all the time. The lens I hear most people hate actually is their 50mm. That's what I learned on. I learned on film in a darkroom setting with a Pentax K1000. And so my 50mm is my baby. And I just love her. She's my favorite. I have a 24-70, but I honestly hate that lens. So it was a good spend of $2,000. I also, it's not on the slide anymore. I had a 200 prime, which was a waste of $5,000 for me because my subjects move a lot and getting up and down with a 15-pound camera and lens combo was not ideal. So, but I put this up here because how well do you know your gear? So I know in every single setting exactly what I need to grab. I do have 2 bodies because I dual shoot all the time. It's a trick I picked up while shooting weddings, and I've just never gotten rid of my second camera. I have a long lens on all the time, and then usually my 50mm, sometimes my 24-70. If I'm at Garden of the Gods, then Michael can tell you,
Right.
always at Garden of the Gods.
Right.
I might as
It's
well
right
live
down the
there.
street from your.
Yeah, my studio's on Garden of the Gods Road. And I saw a sheep for the first time the other day. I basically live there and I've never seen the sheep. I have photographers that send me pictures every time they're there, which is almost daily. And I've never seen them or a bear, but we haven't seen the bear yet. It's gonna happen. And then I keep hairspray and hair oil and baby wipes. And, you know, if it could happen, I keep it in my bag for the most part. I'm also a mom at heart. So some of that's just in the bag because I have kids. And if they're with me, they probably need one of these things. But, oh, and that slide's not in there anymore either. I have a wide range of children. I have an almost 21-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old, and an almost 9-year-old. So I'm going to do this forever, this whole parenting situation. Luckily my 21-year-old is not that interested in dating until today when he called me right before this presentation to ask me my advice on asking a girl out. But, so I'm not going to be a grandparent anytime soon, thankfully, but I do have a beautiful, wonderful family that I just love. And this is why I do all the things that I do. Okay. I took out a lot of useless slides and now I'm thinking maybe I should have put them back in. They felt useless. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about everything to do with family photography today. This is actually a 2-day course that could be an even longer course. I've done it in 1 day. It kind of is short in 1 day, but it's going to be really shortened and condensed tonight. But you can't actually run a business. So it depends on, are you trying to run a business? Most people in family photography, yes, you're trying to run a business. You're not just randomly working with families. So how are you running your business? And the longer presentation goes through a who, what, where, when, why, and how. So we are going to skip some of them. So some of them still say like how on them, but how are you doing what you're doing? I have been full-time in business. Michael said 12 years, but I think it's actually been now. That was probably an old bio that he had. So it's probably been like 14 years maybe. And I've run every spectrum of a business. I've been the photographer that does shoot and burn. And where were we the other day? Somebody didn't know what shoot and burn. Oh, at Maria's workshop. Shoot and burn, and I didn't want to interrupt her because it was her first workshop, but shoot and burn comes from when you're shooting everything and burning it to a CD, and then you're handing it to your client, right? And I've been that photographer that hands somebody a CD with 300 or 400 or 500 pictures on it from one family session, which is really overkill, let me tell you, because that CD probably died in a drawer somewhere. I have a whole bunch of them. I have a whole drawer of those myself. And I've also been the photographer that doesn't want to give anybody any files at all and like they are my prized possessions and they're mine. And now I've kind of settled into this place of my clients leave with very few files. They don't leave with a whole bunch of files. What do they want to hang on their wall is what I'm concerned with. And if it's not on their walls, is it in an album? Is it in a folio box? And that has nothing to do with the amount of money that I'm making. It actually has to do with what I want for my clients at the end of our transaction. Because again, I'm a business, and so there is a transaction that's going to occur. And I love these people. Some of my clients end up being some of my very best friends. But how are you selling? And are you showing your clients what you're selling? So part of your job as a business owner is going to be educating your client. And we run two businesses. So I have my very pretty photography business that lots of people look up to me, and I teach in the area and think, oh my gosh, she's just so awesome. And then I also run my husband's construction company. And let me tell you, that's a totally different world over there. And all of our employees, when I run our business meetings, I could not be more serious that you have to educate your clients, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in. If your client doesn't understand the process, they don't understand what they're going to buy, they don't understand what your job even is, you're going to have a pretty terrible experience. So for me, educating my client is on the very top of my list of what I want to do. So this is my website. This is actually a screenshot of my homepage of my website. And I show this because you want to show what you are selling. If you're selling a digital, the best thing that you could put up here is just a picture, just an image, just a straight image. And I've had that on my website lots of times when I was just selling digitals. Now my focus is wall art, folio boxes, albums. It's mostly wall art and folio boxes. Albums are kind of meh to me at this point. Once you've seen a folio box, you may never go back. So, but also wall art's far more dramatic. So I'm going to show on my very front page of my website the thing that I want to sell. And because I work with families, it's typically not one piece of wall art, especially when they're coming for Garden of the Gods. So that's a real family session. It's a mock-up of a wall art, but that's only because they lived in California. And this is the wall art that they purchased, but I couldn't actually deliver it to them because they're in California. Now, I do have a great partnership with my husband, though, to where he goes and his company hangs my wall art for me. If you can find somebody to partner with that, it's not in this presentation, but it's probably one of the best relationships that you can have. And that would be regardless of the genre. So you could be in Africa shooting with elephants and things, find somebody to hang out. Yeah, it was Africa, right? You went to Botswana. Yeah. So that could be for anybody. Or if you can learn how to professionally hang your own wall art, I am the person that will put 70 holes in the wall till I find just the right spot. So I should not do it myself. I'm not in charge of that. So I have my husband in charge of that, and he's usually the one that actually goes out and does that. That's just a side tip. It's not in this presentation, but it is one of those partnerships that if you are in business and you can get a really great partner in hanging your wall art, that's going to wow your client right off the bat. And it's going to avoid your client sending you a picture of their wall art sitting up against their wall on the floor. Because I can't tell you how many of those I've gotten before of my clients super happy they got their wall art, but I'm getting the picture of it sitting on the floor, laying up against their wall because they haven't hung it up yet. And sometimes it's still there like a year later when we do their next pictures. So what is my process? How do my clients find me? So for me, I'm working with families, but I'm not working with super young families. I'm actually working with families that have older kids. They're going to probably be between the ages of 30 and 50, and they're going to be on Facebook and Google. I actually hate social media. Like, I really wish that it would just fall apart and disappear. But that's where they're at. And so that's where I'm at. Moms are typically going to be on Facebook or Instagram. I'm just really bad at Instagram. I have found after 20 some years of trying to run a business very successfully in the last few years, but I just don't do things I'm not good at doing or I don't want to do anymore. So if you find yourself forcing yourself into doing something like Instagram posting, for instance, it's a tiny small thing. I only actually post on Instagram once in a while, and it's typically if I'm pushing it from Facebook to Instagram. I just don't do it anymore. Or weddings. Again, I hate weddings. I love to attend weddings. I just don't want to shoot them. I'm exhausted by the end of the day. Same thing with newborns. I do not work with newborns. I found that these things were killing my joy and robbing me of everything that made me happy. And I love babies. I love them so much. But nothing makes me want to go work with a baby ever. In fact, I have clients that have babies and I'm like, oh, yeah, can we wait until they're 3? Maybe like, or 4 even, because 3-nagers are a real thing too. So if you find things that are just making you unhappy, weed them out, take them out, find something else to replace it that does make you happy. My first contact is actually typically an email. I don't answer my phone. Some of you know me and call me and I don't answer my phone. I will text you back, but I'm probably not going to answer my phone. If I have a client leave a voicemail, I will call them back, but I actually want everything to run through my email. And that's because I am a one-person entity. Corey jokes that I have people. I don't really have people. I have, Corey might be one of them, but I have me and myself, and sometimes my husband comes and assists me with lighting. But for the most part, it's just me. And so I use a program. I don't think this is in here either, but I use a program called Sprout Studio. That's my client software. And I basically set it up to automate everything. So I do want that first point of contact to come through my email so that it prompts the automated response, which has my initial pricing on it. Because as one human that gets a ton of inquiries, and I probably get 70 inquiries a week, I cannot answer the phone that often. I wouldn't have time to do anything else. And most of those people do not want to work with me because I'm way out of their price range. So that kind of just weeds things out for me so that I have time to do the things that I really love to do. Really, this presentation could be called How Not to Do What You Don't Want to Do, because I have found a way to not do anything that I don't want to do. I have 2 sons that take out the trash because the boys in our house take out the trash because I don't want to. So, and I do always provide a hard copy of my pricing guide. You can go to 1,000 different classes and 1,000 different photographers are going to tell you 1,000 different things. I've been told absolutely never give out a hard copy of your pricing guide. That does not work for me. I don't want people showing up and finding out that a piece of wall art is a couple $1,000s and they had no idea whatsoever, and they are now sticker shocked and they have left, because that has actually happened to me. So everything that I have learned more than likely the hard way. I have tried to take advice from lots of people, but you have to really figure out what works for you. And because I don't answer my phone, they have to get their pricing from somewhere. I don't have it on my website, but I do give out, if they have sent in an inquiry, they're now going to get an automated email response. It even says this is an automated email response, so people don't think that I am answering them at 2 o'clock in the morning, because then they will text you at 2 o'clock in the morning if they think you're emailing them back. But it does have a hard copy of my pricing guide. And then once we've spoken, I will now respond to them. They will either respond with, hey, wow, that is insane, which happens a lot, and you got to grow a thick skin. But also it weeds a lot of people out, and then I don't have to answer the phone and deal with 70 inquiries a week. I don't even think I could answer the phone that often. But once I've spoken to them, I invite everybody to my studio. So I have a huge studio. It's probably the interior, the one room is probably about this big. You think?
The one room,
The one
not
room, yeah.
including your office and. the
Yeah,
other
we've got
areas
some other-
supporting that, with really high ceilings, right?
Mhm.
How many people actually end up being a customer?
I have a hard cutoff. That's a great question, because I don't think it's actually in this presentation. I have a hard cutoff of 6 a month. That doesn't mean more than 6 might actually want to book, but I only actually want to have 6 clients a month because I want to have a ton of time to work with each client. And then again, I'm also running a construction company secretly over here on the side that most of my clients don't know about. And I have 4 kids. If I had more time, I would take 100 a month, but I don't.
So out of the 70, do you?
Out of the 70, I would say probably 10
10 people.
Yeah.
Surface out.
surface out. And most of them I just never hear back from again, which used to hurt my feelings a lot. It used to make me so sad of like, why did this, and I just wanted to know why, like, why don't you want to work with me? Most of it's probably money, right? Like most of the time I started thinking, well, as a consumer myself, it's less awkward to just not ever email them back, especially via email. And it is easy to just say no via email, which is why I give people that option. I'm a terrible, terrible salesperson. I hate doing the sales part. So I really want to know that people are invested long in advance and not have to hard sell anybody anything ever. I do not want to be a salesperson. So I want to know that they're invested up front, that they really want wall art. Sorry, my daughter's friend is calling her because why wouldn't she? And this process works for me. Now, some people, they are great salespeople, and if you answered your phone 70 times, you might retain half of those people, and that would be great. So I'm probably retaining 10, but that's also, it's just part of my process too. And then, so yeah, everything I do has some level of automation to save me time. The studio tour, it's a link that they can just push the link and schedule it. Again, all of this is in Sprout. Sprout Studio is probably the most robust of every program I've tried, and I've tried a lot of them to where it automates literally everything. I don't have to do anything if I didn't want to. You could set it up to where it would just run your business for you almost. But it does take time to set up. I'm not gonna lie that it's easy to set up. It took me about 6 months to get it completely set up. But they do have lots of training videos and whatnot. I jumped on before they had all the training videos. But now there's training videos and there's forums and there's all kinds of things to get you started on that. If we have time at the very end, I could open the back end if anybody wants to see it too. Let's see. And then focusing on making their experience as easy as possible. And they're not gonna, if you do that, they're not gonna mind as much to spend the money. So I'm in my 40s-ish, we'll call it that. And I think I've just gotten to an age, but again, I'm my ideal client right now. And I have gotten to an age where I don't mind spending a little bit more if the process is going to be streamlined for me. So again, even like Sprout Studio, I think it's like $50 a month, which is not that much, but 10 years ago for me, I would not have done that. I've been like, heck no, I have too many subscriptions. I am not paying that. Now I would pay more than that. Like, please just do it for me. I don't want to have to do it. So I am really focused on making their experience. I'm not focused on making it super, super luxury. So there are some photographers that their entire experience is so luxurious and that's how they're drawing people in. I am working with moms and I want to make their process so simple to just come in and then be able to have this on the wall. It's a memory. Their kids love it. Their family loves it. And it's part of now their family, and I am now a part of their family. And so I want to make it as easy as possible. So all of my processes are to make their experience super easy. So I do IPS. So part of my how is pricing and IPS. In the full class of this, I actually go through a whole cost of doing business. If you are running a business, you have to do a cost of running business and knowing what you're going to charge people. Without doing that, you are literally just hoping that something is going to stick and work for you. And I did that for a really long time, and you get very, very burnt out. And I don't, it could be in here, but if it's in here, we'll just do it now instead of later. In 2016, without having the slide, I think it's 2016, might have been 17. I was just charging a fee that I thought was fair, which was like $250 a session. And I shot the most sessions I had ever shot in the history of ever being a photographer. And I don't remember how many it was. It was a lot. But that year I had also taken the time to track all of my time in editing and talking to people and shooting and all of the things. And so I had a paper, like the old style, you know, like when you wrote your mileage down, I had a paper notebook that had all of my time. I added all of it up for the whole year, with how much I made, which looked like an awesome number, let me tell you. And then I did the math and I realized I made like $2.37 or something an hour. And then I cried a lot. Like there were so many ugly tears because like, how do you take this big number that to me was the biggest number of like, I made this money, I did this. And I made $2 and some cents an hour. Like that's not worth anybody's time. So that's when I decided that something had to change, like something really, really had to shift for me. And I've had all of these objections for charging a fair wage of I'm not good enough yet. I don't have time for IPS. I'm not a professional. No one's gonna pay me that. And I just want to make a little extra money on the side. I've said all of those. And every single one of my students in classes and personal mentoring have said all of those and probably 24 more. Right? Because if it doesn't feel like you're good enough yet, you feel, but it's your time, right? Like it's the time that you are worth. You could go work at McDonald's for more than that. And I made $2 and some cents an hour making memories for families. And so to me, that was a huge wake up call. So what does it cost for 1 hour or 1 minute to miss your child or your grandchild's baseball game? Like what would, if you could put a price tag on that, what would it be? And it would probably be either you can't put a price tag on it, or it would be a ridiculously high number. And it's not $2.37, right? That's what it comes down to. It's not $2. And is what you're creating for a client more or less important than time with your loved ones? I know that we all wish that we could just sit at home and not work at all. And not have to go to work and not have to charge people money or not have to run a business. Running a business is honestly the most stressful thing I've ever done in my entire life. And then running the construction company might kill me before I turn 50, but I have a couple years left to go. But also it is teaching my kids some of the most important lessons in their lives, that their parents work hard and they have a good income. And with that good income means that we can take time off for those things that are important. And that's why we both run our own businesses, so that we can just drop work if we want to. Like next week, we go to Florida for 7 days. And I guarantee you, Corey, you're gonna get a text that says, I'm coming back in 3 more days, right? Like I'm going to stay 3, that happened last year and it's probably gonna happen again. Of like, well, shucks, I'm not actually coming back today.
But you have someone who can't get in the water, right?
I don't know, maybe, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
We have a kiddo that had an accident this weekend, so she may or may not be able to swim. We'll see what happens. So you have to think of all those things while you are trying to decide what your pricing is gonna be and what sales process you wanna have. And IPS is not right for everybody. I have a very good friend in California and she makes well more, like multiple 6 figures, which what one would call shoot and burn. She sells 3, 5, and 10 files and makes a ridiculous amount of money. So it's not that IPS is the right way, it's just the right way for me and for my business model. Now, she's a maternity photographer, strictly maternity, and most people are not hanging them up on the wall. So that does work for her. I am working with families and they are coming to me to hang something on the wall. So it just depends on what your business model is, and are you volume or are you a luxury boutique? Those things make a difference too. There is not one way that's better. And I'm not going to tell you that luxury boutique is the way to go. It's absolutely a way to go, but it's not the way to go. I just can't teach you how to do a volume because I don't know. So, oh, hey, look, cost, and it was 2017. Okay. There was a slide. It's because I took them out of order. So cost of doing business, it's really just adding up, and we're not going to go through the whole slide of how to do it, but PPA actually does have a free calculator, and I can give, I don't know if you guys send out presentations to your members
Yeah, we
afterward,
can.
but I can make a PDF of this. Because you can click that link and then it will take you there. You're essentially just adding up everything that it costs to run your business. So if you have a studio, subscriptions, props, gear, insurance, like everything, think of everything that it costs to run your business. And then you're going to add your time and your labor in there. And then you're going to add in taxes. And if you want to make additional profit to that, and then you're just going to divide it out by the number of months and then the number of clients that you want to have. It's actually, it looks really scary when you first do it. And then you realize, oh, so if Bruce wanted to have 40 clients a month, oh, he only needs to make $800 per client. And now he knows where he's going with each sale. So if he knows he only needs to make $800 per client, that's really easy to get to versus just assuming that everybody needs to be a $10,000 sale. A lot of photographers talk about this $10,000 sale, but if you only get one of them a year,
Right.
you know, those,
Make $10,000.
though you did make $10,000, but those photographers that are making $800 over and over and over and over are doing better than you, right? So do your cost of doing business. Actually, at my 2-day workshop, which is not a plug to my workshop, but I'm gonna actually have people sit down and do their cost of doing business. We're going to actually do it because I think this is the point that most people miss when running a business is the actual part where you have to sit down and do the numbers. It takes maybe a half an hour and now you have a path to success. And it took me multiple years to get up the courage to write the numbers down,
Mhm.
but I did it. And again, because of 2017 and my taxes. It was a sad day, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I have gotten so good at photography. And I made $2 an hour, so. The next thing most people tell me, especially when I'm mentoring for businesses, but IPS is scary. Yeah, it is. If you're not a natural salesperson, and I'm not, I actually have 2 years of a degree in advertising and I quit school because I realized that this is a degree for sales. This is just a sales job. This is just a bachelor's degree that says I can sell something and I'm not a salesperson. So it was not anything to do with art. I thought somehow I was going to go to school and become this big art director, and that was not going to happen with that degree. But why does it scare you? And for me, it used to be the fear of people picking nothing. Those awkward silences when people are sitting down, and we've all probably done it. So if you've ever purchased a car, you've all probably sat there for a second, looking at the paper and looking at the numbers, and you were just quiet for a minute. That's when I used to panic
Mhm.
and start offering deals and discounts that don't exist. They don't exist. I don't even know how to put them in my system. They don't exist because that part was so scary to me until I realized this is a normal part of the process of thinking through any purchase whatsoever. And then also one of my fears used to be that people would not like their pictures. They just wouldn't like them. And so if they didn't like them, of course, they're going to again buy nothing. But they're not going to buy nothing if you are prepared.
So there's a question in
Yeah.
the chat real
Oh,
quick. Is,
good.
what does IPS mean? And I responded
Oh,
back,
yeah.
in-person sales.
It
but
does. It
it's
means
for-
in-person sales. And I will say, to go with the other point that I made, in-person sales can mean anything. It just means that you are sitting down. So if Michael and I were sitting down here together and I am trying to sell him something physically in person, you can do in-person sales of digital files. I did that for a long time. That was one of my steps into IPS was I didn't go straight from shoot and burn and handing people a CD. Again, just shooting it and burning it onto a CD. I didn't go straight from that to selling massive pieces of wall art. I went from shoot and burn to having clients come into my studio. And then I was in a different space at that point. And they would come in and sit down and we would just look at the pictures together. At the end of the day, they were still leaving with a thumb drive. It wasn't a CD anymore. I had gotten way cooler at this point. And they had my logo on them. They were very cool. But I had moved up in the world and we sat down together. And so it's still in-person sales. A lot of people will tell you in-person sales means you need to be selling wall art. You can sell whatever you want to. You want to sell them a file, sell them a file. I give my clients my files. I don't even sell them to them. But not without purchasing a piece of
Right.
wall art first. But in-person sales just means you are sitting down in person, sometimes on Zoom. A lot of my clients come in from out of town, but you are physically doing the sale together. Is that the only one?
Yeah, that
Okay.
was it for now. Thank you.
No, you're good. Oh, nothing's happening. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So after I decided to make the shift from, okay, I got to start selling some kind of wall art, to me, it was not satisfying to hand over a thumb drive. Cause I have, again, a whole drawer full, I have 4 kids. I have a drawer full of thumb drives and CDs that I don't even know I don't have any idea what's on them. And so that was no longer, just was not satisfying as an artist. It wasn't satisfying as a business person. It just felt like I was leaving the transaction unfinished. I decided I needed to have some kind of preparation in order to kill the fear, because I was just so afraid that people would pick nothing again. I didn't know how to make the next step. So for me, the next step was meeting with my client. And that studio tour, so the initial studio tour or phone consultation, because again, I'd say 50% of my clients do come in from out of town and they physically don't live here. That starts with a phone consult. So I will, at that point, answer my phone,
Mhm.
but it's usually like an appointment. So that's easier for me. And again, it's because I'm an introvert. I don't know who's on the other side of the phone. I don't want to answer my phone if I can't. If it's Corey, I might answer the phone. Maybe even Phil. I'd probably answer the phone for Phil.
Oh.
So,
Maybe
you know,
less.
maybe. It depends. If you called me, I'd be like, what does Phil want? And I might answer
Like,
just
you can
Just
call-
out of
yeah,
curiosity.
out of curiosity. I would for sure probably answer the phone.
Call you more than once. Yeah.
Oh, I would,
Repeat
I
calls
will.
Yeah.
I will answer. Corey knows that happened this weekend. So I invite them in for a studio tour. I'm way better with somebody in person than over the phone. And so I have them in, I call it a studio tour. It's really just a pre-sales session for me. I actually, at this appointment, I talk to them about what they want to do, what session are they trying to have? Is this a family session? I get a lot of seniors. I don't book a lot of seniors. I get a ton of inquiries for them though. So that's one of the ones. I get a lot of inquiries for seniors, but I don't book many of them. They come in, they tell me about their session, and that's actually for me when my sales process starts. On that little form that they fill out, it's gonna ask them, because I have a whole page on my website about the various products that I sell, and there aren't very many, but it's gonna ask them a little question of which one was their favorite product. One, I know that they've now looked at my website. And they might just click the button and pick something, but if they've picked an actual product, I have a feeling they've actually looked at it. And then I can have that sitting out. So I use the studio or the studio tour as an actual sales
Mm.
process. So they're in my studio, and I like, if they say folio box is their favorite when they walk in, the front table is gonna be full of all of our folio boxes with images in it
Mhm.
of whatever sort of session they're trying to have, whether that's children, family, maternity, it's gonna have those loaded in the box already. If I can actually, at that appointment, go over location and clothing, they are now more invested in the session, even though they have not paid me any money yet. They are now at some level invested and more likely to book. So most of my bookings are coming during the studio tours. I'm just keeping track of time, so we don't run out of time.
No, you're
I could talk about this literally forever. So then at that point, I am pre-selling. Oftentimes, I actually will book the session and pre-sell a product at that time. And the one thing that I did learn in school while going to school for advertising is money spent is money forgotten, and that is absolutely true. If they invest $1,500 before the session, I know for a fact they're going to invest even more after the session, and those are my best sales. So if I have a client that's coming in, and this is where weeding them out ahead of time is really important to me. I want them to see that there are large numbers on my pricing guide and know that they're invested in this prior to coming in. If they think that they're coming in to spend $150 and leave with a CD, that doesn't benefit me or them for their time to even come to the studio. Also, some of these people do drive down from like Lone Tree, Denver, up from Pueblo, so I don't want to waste their time, and it takes me 40 minutes to get to my own studio, so. But I do want to help them, and then that's, I think the next slides that we have coming up is how am I helping them? And so I'm prepping not only myself for this sale, but I'm also prepping them for their session. So I take complete charge of my sessions. I'm actually a little ridiculous about it. This is my location guide. So I will either send this to them, depending on whether they're there in person or And some of these pictures are just super, super duper old. But this is what they get. And it is just a multi-page PDF that I'll either pull up on my laptop if they're physically there on a computer or on a TV like this. Or I send it to them via email and have them choose their favorite location. We live in a beautiful state and I want to know where they want to shoot before we even talk about their clothes. Because if their clothes clash the location, that's like people show up in orange to go to Garden of the Gods. We're all having a really bad day. And it has happened before. So I kind of want to know. The other thing I want to know that's not actually in here is I ask people, what color is your interior of your home? Like, where are you putting this and what color? So again, if they have very muted tones and pick something very, very bold, I just want them to know ahead of time that's going to stand out and be a really awesome statement piece, because not everybody likes a statement piece, honestly. A lot of people who have very muted tones in their homes do not want something that is going to just scream, I went to Garden of the Gods when you walk in the door. But some people do. So I might choose a different location based on what the interior of their home looks like, because I want this piece of wall art to live there literally forever until their kids are at their funeral fighting over who gets to take it home with them. Like, that's the goal, is the kids fighting over it later. The next thing that I do, this is a copy of my style guide. So it has a little welcome blurb about me because somebody told me I should put that in there. I don't know that that's really helpful, but it's in there and I've never taken it out. It also has a list of vendors, which on there has my hair and makeup artist. It also has some dress designers and some great places to get clothing. Because again, at the end of the day, all I want to do is help them have the most successful session ever. It's going to have helpful tips, which includes feeding your children and your husband, because that's really, really important. And then the most important page is actually the wardrobe. So once we've picked the location, I actually choose clothing for them that's going to complement the location and the colors in their home. Sometimes I will actually shop for them, like on Amazon and Kohl's, and just like really easy places to get clothing, nothing crazy. Sometimes people buy these, sometimes they don't, but they now have a visual guide of what they should be looking for. So even if they don't buy them, and I have had whole families show up in exactly what I told them to wear. And let me tell you, they looked great. They looked so good. And their sessions went flawlessly. So, okay. Now what? So we've prepped our client. We might have even sold a piece of wall art. So what are we going to do to prepare for a really successful session? So we've done all of the prep except for the actual session. So now it's time to dive into the actual session. I had to take out a lot of these slides because we can't go into detail with 2 hours of all of them. But we're going to try to focus on what are we going to do that's going to keep that client coming back either year after year. In my case, because it's so high cost, it's like every 2 to 5 years, depending on the client. I do have a couple clients that come back every year. I don't know what they're doing with all this wall art, but
Like themselves.
they do. Even we haven't done them every year. So what is making a good family portrait? I think having an understanding of what makes a good family portrait is important. I've gotten some awesome stock photos of some old family portraits. I actually love all of these. And then there's one more, and then there's one of mine in there too. And then that one on the side is mine. On this end, okay. So what are similar about these? So I don't know, does anybody, well, my stepmom does have glamour shots still hanging on her wall. So you don't have to raise your hands, but do trends in photography last. What I find about these, all of these, are that they're very, very classic and clean. You might be able to tell what era they came from, right? Because of the clothing, the hair and whatnot. I think that's important in a family portrait. You want to know what time period it came from. This one from the early 1900s on the left, actually, the little girl brought her baby doll and they have their dog in this portrait. I love that. When kids bring their favorite stuffy and they don't want to put it down, I actually don't ask them to put it down. And then even this one on the right, mom and the little daughter, at the very least, they have matching patterns on. And one might say, don't have everybody in a pattern, But this probably was so them to run around in outfits that were matching all the time. Mom probably had matching outfits made for them. I know this because my mom had very similar portraits made where her mom was having their clothes made, or she was probably making them, but they were all in matching patterns all the time. And so I think some of those things, they're not necessarily trends, but they are things that let you have a little peek into that family. So, but as far as trends go, I don't do anything that's very, very trendy. One might say that the compositing is trendy right now, but I actually think it's something that's going to last and live on forever. But I try to focus on portraits being very, very classic, but also very emotionally driven. And so I'm always having family members touching each other, which always sounds worse than I want it to sound when I say it, but that is the way that there's no other way to say it. I have holding hands and I have dads kissing foreheads, and it doesn't matter what is happening in the family. I want those family bonds that are already there to start coming out during my session. And I will say some ridiculous things to get it during a session. I'm sure we're gonna see something eventually. It started with, I was at a wedding and the whole family hated me. I was positively sure of it. The whole family hated me. And no one would smile during any of the family pictures that we were trying to take. And I don't even know why it happened or how it happened, but I yelled the word boobs. And then everybody smiled. And see, you're all doing it now too. And I was like, oh, that's so fun. And I started doing it all the time. I did start warning people ahead of time. I did during these consults that we had, whether on the phone or in person. I did say, like, if you have a teenage boy and they refuse to smile, I might pull this one thing out, and it works without fail every time. But grandmas die laughing. They're my favorite. That's the one that I don't know if it's shock and awe or what's happening, but I do warn people, and it turned out to be one of these things that, like, all of a sudden I had all of these photos where people were really laughing and really looking at each other, because then they looked at each other to see if everybody else was laughing, and those were my favorite ones. So it was the craziest thing. It was a moment of panic, I think, and then it turned into this beautiful thing. So, and who doesn't like boobs? Everybody likes boobs. So, well, yeah, Corey's writing this down. I know. I give Corey a lot of crap. So, so how are you keeping your clients coming back for more? So for me, it's education and consistency. So consistency in all areas of doing business. We cannot dive into this at all, but whether it's your branding, your communication, your shooting and your editing, does your work that you're giving your clients actually look like what you have on your website? That's one of the biggest discrepancies that I see when someone comes to me for mentoring personally, is they will show me their website, and it's probably a gorgeous website. And then I have them bring me a folder of images of family sessions, and it's extremely inconsistent. So what they're bringing me, that they're like, well, this is what's happening, but this is what my website looks like. Well, how did you do this over here? Where did these pictures from your website actually come from? A lot of times they do come from workshops and seminars and various things. That's really great that you can accomplish that there, but you have to be able to produce it on your own at your own sessions. So if you have these inconsistencies, your clients might not understand why they don't like it, but they feel uneasy. Yes.
And would this maybe be inconsistencies with editing styles and like
Mhm.
tonality shifts, or?
It can be tonality shifts. So that's one of the things that goes back into trends. So if you have this beautiful portfolio of bold colors, and then all of a sudden one day you were like, I like this muted green situation that everybody's doing, and this bright and airy, and it just constantly shifts and changes because you're trying new things. That's going to look very inconsistent. And it might be that one year muted greens are in, and they were about 10 years ago. And then the next year we have these brown tones that are in. And so you're doing that because you think that's what's making clients happy. And then the next year it's like, well, black and white is the thing and shooting on film is the thing. It's fun to try some of these trends, and I actually use them to show people like, hey, I could do this, but it's usually like one image with a story and like, why did I do such an offbeat thing for me? Because all of mine are bold colors, very classic and clean. So you want to tell your clients why you've shifted into this thing, but not fully shift into it.
But isn't it problematic that on your website,
Mhm.
you're showing beautiful people and every family isn't necessarily beautiful?
No, because most of my clients have now been, I'm gonna call myself a professional stylist, have been professionally styled. Everything that's on my website and that's on my Facebook are real people, even my workshops, which Michael has been to. I don't bring models to workshops for the most part. I bring real families.
Mhm.
So the one that Michael was at, actually, it was like the last PPA merit class of the year for a couple of us. And I had a whole bunch of landscapers in this family workshop, which was a little intimidating. I showed up and there was a whole bunch of landscapers in this class and I was like, oh my gosh. Because we're gonna do some weird things with the mountains in a little bit. So and we're gonna do it here tonight too. But I bring real families and one of the families had a crazy, wild, autistic 2-year-old. Was that the one you were at? Or was that the video one?
I think that was video one.
Mhm.
I don't remember.
I
that.
mean, this
Yeah,
kid was off the rails, just he was losing his mind, but like I can't actually teach someone how to work with a family if I bring a set of models that know how to stand there just still the entire time. That's not a realistic setting to learn in. That's great if you are learning how to make a fine art piece because you're gonna have one person that's just gonna stand there either way. I am teaching people how to work with children and families. So even in my workshops, I bring real families. They're usually my clients, so they know that I'm insane ahead of time, and they know that I teach ahead of time, but I do ask families that are just regular old families. They might have 2-year-olds, they might have 17-year-olds that don't want to smile. I tell my class to yell boobs because it makes the people smile. So you guys are still smiling. Corey really particularly likes this story. I don't think Corey's been to one of my workshops, so. No, she's finding out now. She had no idea. The things that we do. So yeah, I mean, everything that's on my website, these are all just real families. I don't pick and choose and I don't weed out based on what people look like. I never, ever, never weed out based on like, well, this is a real family, but this is like a real beautiful family. No, they're all just real people. And that's gonna look consistent too over time. But one of the things that does look consistent probably in my work is that most of my moms and teenage daughters probably did have professional hair and makeup done, which does make a huge difference in the final product. But I have tons of clients that show up with no makeup on, because if that's them, then I want them to show up exactly how they are. And then so with your shooting and editing, yes, changing your style often, that's gonna look inconsistent. So you kind of want to get a good firm grasp on who do you want to be and what do you want to do. If you change that, I do suggest slowly weeding out some of the old stuff, which I've done multiple times over the years. I've done it lots of times, actually. And then the ease of the whole process and getting the family ready, it's really, really hard work. So again, if you can make that easier for them, they are going to continue to come back. And then reminding them that you're still around, which I can't see this whole slide. Oh, I can see it up there. So I do past client promos as opposed to new client promos. I would actually like to reward the people who keep coming back. I wish Xfinity would do that. Like I've been with them for a really long time and they don't seem to care that I'm a very loyal client also because it's the only one in my neighborhood. And then I do mini session events a couple of times a year, but it's not very often. And I actually use postcard mailings as opposed to ever post like boosting a post on Facebook. That's a whole situation that we could get into that we actually don't have time to get into. But I find that when people have something in their hand, it's now shocking. And you're so used to just scrolling on Facebook, you just scroll right past things. So I don't use Facebook marketing at all. I send out postcards, like physical postcards. So here's a real family session. This shouldn't count because this photographer is quite a famous photographer from Texas. But knowing what I do, She rerouted an entire family road trip back to Texas from Washington to make sure that she came through Colorado for a mini session because she just was mind blown by Garden of the Gods. This was actually, everything in this is natural light. I rarely, and when I say rarely, I have like 4 times taken a light outside. I don't like to take extra stuff with me, and I don't like taking an assistant with me. Corey came once. I have no time to like tell another human what to do. I am talking to my client literally the entire time that we're shooting. I have no time to tell someone where to go or what to do. So I rarely ever take lights outside. I will do it once in a great while. Everything that you're going to see in this presentation was done with just natural light. I think shooting at the right time of day and in the right position is hugely important, especially in situations like this, where there's just open sun. There's no shade at Garden of the Gods, not here anyway. So this is a real family. These are real pictures from their 20-minute session. And we're going to flip through a couple of them. So these are some of my emotionally driven images. They did start in a posed image. So initially I had mom and son close to this position, but just looking straight at the camera. And then I just asked him to snuggle in and for her to close her eyes. They're just really simple prompts. There's some people that have very complicated prompts of asking people to tell a story in the ear, and that doesn't work for me. I just need something really simple. And I ask people typically to stand how they would normally stand. They're going to be more comfortable in the first place, and then just lightly tweak them. So same thing here with dad and daughter. They were initially, again, just looking right at me. We were,
Use the Hanson font,
not
10.
I don't know what
14 or
Hanson,
whatever.
I don't know what Hanson does.
Classic posing.
He is very classic posing, and I do some very classically posed, but I don't, there's no numbers.
Yeah. He's got
No. No, there's no numbers, Phil. That's way too much thought process into that. And then I just, a lot of times, dads and or husbands, it's usually the same human, but I will ask them to like kiss the temple, kiss the forehead, because that's probably just the sweetest thing ever with a little girl or a mom. It's my go-to. You're going to see it a lot. So here's just very classic post. We had this one right here. They wanted Garden of the Gods in the background. Again, that's why they came out to see me. And at Garden of the Gods in some of these spots, there's physically nowhere to put a light. So if I use the light in some of them, but not others, the whole gallery now will be inconsistent. So I just shoot them very quickly in the best time of light, which is usually right as it dips down under our mountain of Pikes Peak right there. But that means I only have about 30 minutes total. And then there's no light.
Reflectors.
Nope. Why would I use a reflector? It will fly away. Have you been up there? Do I need to take you to Garden of the Gods, John? Yes.
I
saw you.
Within this picture in
Mhm.
particular, that you've either used some kind of brush or something to punch up the family, that they seem to stand out a little bit more
Yeah.
from the actual background.
Oh, yeah. Yep. We're gonna do a tiny bit of editing. That's why I'm like, okay, how much time do we have left? I don't think we might get to that. We'll see how fast we can go. So in some of these, again, it's just a close-up of the exact same one. I do like triangle posing families, but without any posing blocks. I don't take things outside either. I'm not putting chairs out on a mountain because that's weird. I have done that lots of times. I took a couch to a field and I did all the things because it was, again, popular. It looked weird after about a year of looking at it. I'm like, why is there a couch in a sunflower field? And the couch fell off of the trailer while we were driving there. Like, it's a headache, right? So I wanted to look as natural as humanly possible. This image did get squished and is weird, but it was too late. I already put it in there. And then I do try to make sure that there's points of contacts and that nobody has a dead arm. So what I mean by a dead arm is just hanging like straight down. If you have a joint, bend it. But don't be real weird about it, but you know, bend it. So like even the girl here, I didn't have her just put her arm straight down. I just had her gently fold her dress out a tiny bit. Because that's just going to look far more appealing than if she had her arm straight down to her side, which is what naturally most people are just going to stand there. And then we have lots of points of contact. If I can have the family touching everywhere, then that's what we do. And I never leave boys' hands out, although this kid did not leave his thumb out. I usually leave a thumb out or have them put just their thumb in so that you can see that they have digits of some kind. Here, it didn't really matter because like there's a tree right there. I mean, come on. And your clients probably will never notice any of these things ever. So this is the exact same pose. I just had everybody turn in and look at mom. And I actually had mom make some ridiculous noise. The other one that I do is I ask everybody to start laughing, and you have to laugh out loud, and the loudest person wins. And it starts out sounding so ridiculous, and then they're truly laughing. So that's more than likely what we ended up doing here. I don't think dad loved. Some dads like farting. Some dads like farting noises, and some dads like don't. I don't understand either. I think it's hilarious, but. And then in this one, again, they were looking at me, and I don't do a full dip because I don't like it. I think it's pretty dramatic and a little crazy. But I have dads just dip back a tiny bit. And again, what that's doing is creating an S curve in mom. And anytime you can create an S curve in a lady, and I'll actually show you guys. And this is the best tip ever because it's not in here. You have a mom and they're typically just gonna stand there and they're gonna do this. Ask them to hold like they have to pee. Like hold like you have to pee, because most women will know what that means. They will. See, Jane knows. They will, yeah. And if you hold like you have to pee, you've now created, like naturally they'll just do it. They just know. And then they do it. And then the dads laugh and then I say, don't you do that. Don't do it. It'd be weird if you did it, Phil, right? And that's, again, that
It's
gets,
never going in.
no. There are the dads that try, let me tell you. They're like, ooh, you want me to, I'm like, no, not that face, no.
Unless he's in drag.
You know, if it seems appropriate, then sure, they can do it too. Yeah, Corey McDonald is good at it. And then to add variety, I do have clients sit on rocks. I have people ask me all the time because they're red, like she's in a white dress, like it washes out, it's fine. It's gonna be fine, just have them sit down. But I'm gonna flip through these faster so that we can actually do the editing part. And then if you guys have questions. And then at the end, I always have families just hug. We do our last pose and then I have everybody just give a big giant hug. This dad was far more awkward about it than I thought he was gonna be. But it's a real family session, right? And they loved that one and she still picked it, so. Okay, let's edit. We're gonna open Photoshop. Let's see. So I have brought two straight out of the camera photos, right? They were taken on the same day at the same location. This is my favorite spot to shoot at Garden of the Gods, but I actually have to stand in the most dangerous position ever of being in the middle of the street and then ask my clients to yell car on a corner where people have like fallen off of the cliff with their cars. And so like, it's not very safe.
Yeah.
It's High Point, yeah. It's not safe at all. And I stand in the street and, you know, it's my favorite spot. So,
You see where it says recording on your screen there?
you know,
I think you can drag that up.
right here.
I can't. Is it- Can you grab it? and drag
Uh-uh,
it? Okay.
no,
I don't know what's-
I don't know why. I know it's usually goes away more. Like, can I hide this? Oh, hide video panel? Hide floating meeting controls. Oh, look, I
Ooh,
did it.
I didn't know that was there.
Is that gonna go away? Okay, when am I? So it is my favorite spot to shoot, but I can't now get the mountain. And typically when this is in good light right here, the mountain itself, as you can see, is really blown out and very, very bright because until the actual sun goes behind Pikes Peak, like I wouldn't have any time to shoot whatsoever. So, and on top of all of that, because we didn't get to talk about it, we have a very, very saturated market of photographers in Colorado Springs. And so what I decided one day is, well, I might not be able to get a different view than them, but I can make a different view than them. And this is where it got weird that I had a bunch of landscape photographers in my workshop because I was like, well, we're just going to move the mountain. And I move the mountains all the time now. So this is a typical straight out of the camera, natural light where we would start. But what I have started to do to set myself apart from other photographers is I will take a shot of the mountains in a better light. So typically right as we're getting finished, these rocks are glorious and they're in the exact position that I need them if I couldn't see the people from right here. So this is from the parking lot. That's the back of my husband's truck actually, because he was right in the way. But really all I need are these mountains right here. So what we're gonna do is take the mountains and put them back over here. I wish I had the actual image of this finished. And I took it actually to Texas school and I still forgot to bring the finished image. But what I do is I'm going to start with cropping it. So I'm gonna crop it to where we're gonna have plenty of room. Oh, yeah. And I use the original ratio. And then the other question that I've been getting in the last 6 months is, do you use generative fill? Absolutely. It makes my life so much easier. I mean, for competitions and things, no, I'm not using generative fill unless you're allowed to use AI. But for a client work, we probably won't have time. I can show you how I'm doing the actual generative fill so it's not funky. It's the most amazing time-saving tool of all time. And again, I'm already moving the mountains, so nothing about this is exact reality anyway. Most of my clients don't even notice that I have moved the mountain. To them, it's just how they saw it, and so that's what they remember. So then we're gonna take this one and we're gonna drag it over. And I know everybody's thinking like, this one's in focus and the background is not. We're gonna do all of that. So I'm gonna bring the opacity down just so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to position this wherever I want it. Again, it's not reality. It's just a tool that I am using. I actually want to see what is behind his head, yeah. To set myself apart from other photographers and kind of like wow my clients. And a lot of them are coming from out of town and so they want this big mountain view, but you can't get it in just the right spot from everywhere. Okay. And what I'm doing, I'm just trying to get the edge of that truck out. I mean, we could edit it out, but if it's going to take more time, why do that? Okay. So that's relatively where I want these mountains. And I'm going to turn it off. And then I'm actually going to come down here and I'm going to, none of this is set up the right way because I don't edit on this laptop. To quick select, and I'm going to select my subject. Photoshop has gotten way better at this over the years. So much better. And it pretty accurately selected it. For this, we don't need it to be very, very accurate. If he had sky behind him, we would need to be very, very accurate on the cutout. Because we have these trees back here and we're just going to blend more trees into it, it doesn't have to be very accurate. So I'm going to come back up here and turn our mountain layer back on, and I'm going to hit the little mask button down here at the bottom, and it's going to mask it the wrong way. I do it like this all the time. I'm just going to hit Control or Command I to invert it. You could have your selection and come up here to select and invert selection first. That just seems like an unnecessary step for me. I use a lot of shortcuts because I usually have one hand here and one hand here all the time. And so this looks absolutely ridiculous, right? Yeah. Don't worry, it's supposed to. So we are going to, if for some reason, this was a thing that it took me years to learn this. I saw it on a video. Let's say you have this cutout and you don't like where you've placed it. If you unlink it with this little linky tool guy right here, I don't know any of the official terms of the things. You can now take your move tool and you can move this around underneath your mask. And I say some of these things that are probably pretty obvious because I went years without knowing them. Samantha Hardcastle, some of you know her, just taught me something the other day that I was like, man, you know what? We were mentoring and I was the mentor. And I was like, you know, I really wish that you could do this and this. And she was like, you can. And she showed me and I'm like, oh my gosh, years of frustration. And it was to make a straight line. Well, like a horizontal, not a horizontal, a diagonal line with my brush. It's so stupid simple. Apparently you can. And then you just hit the check mark. Okay, so now we have what is not in this one, a very natural background. So how are we going to fix that? So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna come back to our mask. I'm just gonna link them just for the sake of putting it back where it was. And I'm gonna grab a brush and I'm gonna make sure I'm on a soft round brush. I have a lot of brushes in there. I'm gonna make it really, really big. And I'm gonna put it at like 30% opacity. And I'm gonna make sure that I'm on a black brush. So if you are not familiar with masking, if you paint black on a mask, it's gonna take it off. I don't know everybody, so I don't know everybody's level of Photoshop skills. And I'm just going to mask some of it off. We're gonna just lightly blend it in. We're gonna take care of all these white lines in a minute. And I'm really doing this around the people. I'm actually gonna move this up again. I'm doing this around the people because it's gonna end up looking far more natural in the end. They're not gonna look like they have halos. This is way harder, again, if you have just a white sky behind somebody, especially dads, because their hair just seems to disappear. And since I know we have green behind here in the original image, I can just dot this out and blend it in, and then we're gonna match the blur on that. We're gonna do the same thing around mom's crown. I am not being very picky about it because we don't have time for picky right now. So again, if you're looking for something that's extremely accurate as far as like, this is exactly what Garden of the Gods looks like, I'm not your girl. I also cut one of these rocks off all the time. All the time. I'm like, well, that's just ridiculous. We're gonna cut it off. Okay. I'm gonna make my brush even bigger and I'm gonna brush out this rock just because I know it's there. I don't want it there. And so one of the things people ask me too is, do you do this and then show your clients the pictures? No, all of my clients see completely and utterly unedited images to choose their pictures because I'm not gonna go to this level of trouble. And then they don't buy it. Because at home, if I was doing this, I'd probably take at least a half an hour to do this. We're just gonna blend it up into there. It's like the Bob Ross happy little trees. In fact, if they would just cut this one tree down, my job would be so much easier.
I know.
This tree is just in my way all the time. Like it has no regard for the fact that I am trying to make pretty pictures out there. And it's impossible to cut out. It's in my way.
Maybe you could put out a contract on.
Well, did you see when they put up the big blue frame a couple years ago? Oh, gosh, that was, I don't know if anybody else is familiar with the big blue frame, but it was atrocious. Okay.
If you go with the original with AI, the generative fill out that tree and then you.
But it would be different every time, like.
Right.
People would know at that point.
Yeah.
I know. Okay, so now it's still looking fairly ridiculous, right? Because we don't have the same. I've actually seen people do this and then post it with skies in particular, when they change out the sky and you have a blurred background and you have an in focus sky.
Right.
That's inconsistent. Let me just throw that out right there.
At least
If
you're not
looking
talking
for
about me behind my
consistency.
back, right?
Well, Michael, we could personally mentor, where I work, if you need help with that. Okay, so I've unclipped these little guys in case you want to move it again. I have the layer itself selected and not the mask. This is super important. We're gonna come up here to filter and we're gonna come down to blur and Gaussian blur. And we are going to match the blur. So this is our original image right here. So we can see, and it's butted right up against the in focus image. And we are going to bring over our blur. It's usually in the 20s, maybe 30s. I do shoot super shallow all the time. I was actually telling Jane, I focus stack people constantly. That is not something to do if you don't know how to do it. And if you're not very, very fast. But I focus stack people all the time. So I will shoot the people these people are all on the same plane, but let's say that there was a little girl right here
Mm.
and this is at 2.8, I would have gotten mom and dad, they're on the same plane, baby on the one shot. And then I would have gotten the little kid right here in another shot. And then I would have swapped out the little girl in front to keep everybody at 2.8. Yes.
Now, is that where having the Z8 in particular can be a huge boom because you have such a wide area of focus points?
I'm having so many issues trying to figure out how to focus that camera. It's not even fun. There's so many options that I actually told my husband the other day, I'm like, I'm gonna need to hire Michael to show me how to use the camera. Well, I don't know that you have the 8.
I have the 7 too.
But still,
so,
it's
like, the
probably more
mirrorless
than
camera,
I
but it
just,
has-
I messed up the focus the other day and couldn't figure out how to get it back to where it was before. So no. It might be. It's possible in 6 months I'll have a different answer. I've only used it like 4 times and I want to love it so much because it is the right answer, but I just, yes, it's probably very helpful. But on my 850, I can do it really fast, like just super duper fast. It probably is more doable with the 8. Corey would know,
Are you hand holding your camera?
always, yeah. Oh, I can't stand tripods. I lost the plate to my tripod. I have no idea where it is and I can't use it. I needed it the other day and I'm like, well, that's a real bummer. So, nope, no tripods for me, Jane. There's no tripods. Okay. So I typically will turn things on and off several thousand times to make sure that it's actually where I want it to be in the focal range. This would technically be further back than this tree, so I want this to be more blurry than this tree, but I did leave this line of trees right here that would be right in line with that. And then I just hit okay, right? So now it's blending in far more. Is it the real background? Absolutely not, but that is because that's how I'm setting myself apart from other photographers. I've had many photographers approach me and ask me, where did you shoot that? And I was like, I don't know, I was at High Point. I was at High Point. I don't know why you can't find that spot. It's at High Point, right? Like it is. Yeah, you gotta keep going. Yep. Just keep going. And I would have rebuilt all of this by hand in the past, but now with generative fill, I actually just use generative fill. I come in here and then it was great. We had, I don't know if everybody knows or anybody knows Unmesh Dinda from Pixin Perfect on YouTube. He taught the same thing that I do. So when you're using AI and generative fill, they get real funky real fast. He actually has a plugin that's free that does this for you. I've just been doing it in tiny little steps. AI is only the generative fill only creates tiny little pieces. So if you do a big area, it looks really weird. If you do it in tiny little steps like this, where you come in here and then you hit generative fill on just a really small area and hit generate, which it takes a while to do. His plugin is actually really fast. I used it for the first time today. Of course, we're going to be on, it's not going to do it now because I've decided that I'm teaching something. In reality, this does actually work. You come in and you just would fill all these tiny little boxes all the way around. That's going to take us way too much time and we're not going to do that right now. So I'm going to actually delete that. I'm going to actually just crop in.
So would you normally?
Yeah, that works too.
Well, I wouldn't normally see, because look what's happening here, Phil. I'm losing the whole top of that mountain. You see, which was going to make me sad in the end, but for right now, we are going to crop it off. You would just take the boxes and just go all the way around.
I was just gonna say, would you group it or merge visible and then do it on the merge visible group?
I mean, you can, but if I wasn't teaching, I promise you it works. It's only because I'm teaching you something that it doesn't want to do it. I do this a lot, and every time I'm teaching something and I'm like, ooh, look what I can do, it doesn't do it anymore. So
It's a lot more.
it is way more accurate. It's actually so accurate that it's a little scary, honestly. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that blade of grass was there. I did that with grass today, actually. I was like, that's impressive. And then I use the sky replacement tool all the time. Does anybody use it? Does everybody use it? It's the most amazing time-saving thing ever. I used to do them by hand, and now I do all of them in here. So we come in, I'm just gonna merge them because it's gonna be easier. Merge visible. I flatten all the time too, so you can yell at me at whatever point you want to. Sometimes I have like 70 layers going and it just looks very confusing and I just save it real quick and then I flatten it. And then I save another one and then I save another one. It's not a good way to use space in your computer, but I'll at least be able to go back and be like, oh, I was on version 17 for real this time. That's the version that I was on. Some of my competition pieces really are. I thought I would bring one last year to the group and deconstruct it. And I'm like, there's like 200 layers on there. So, but I use the sky replacement. If you did not know that you can load skies in there, you totally can. So this one, it's probably the last time that I used it was at Texas school. I shoot my skies with my cell phone all the time. You can't tell the difference. So I have a whole bunch of skies in here that were all shot with my cell phone. Sometimes the day of, sometimes from my neighborhood way out east. This is one that I use a lot. They're all cell phone photos though. I think that one's actually one of the preloaded ones. Or maybe it's not, it's hard to tell. I have a huge, huge folder on my phone of sky photos. And I've printed 70-inch prints with them and you cannot tell the difference that it was with a cell phone versus your camera. So I do it all the time. So we're going to use this one because it's the one that I like to use. I don't actually do much of the adjusting in here except for the shift edge. I will shift it because these rocks, oh, I'm going the wrong way, get really funky if you don't shift the edge. But this is where people make mistakes. They will put it in here like this. And I shifted it way too far, but that's fine because I really want to do that. I make sure that it's outputting to new layers so that you can actually adjust those layers. Because the ending point that I see a lot of photographers going to now that this tool exists is that they would then post it just like that. Which I don't know if you can spot the problem, but
Just one.
Michael, yeah, no.
I was
It's the
joking.
problem. He's joking. I've never actually seen Michael do that.
I don't, I
We
know
joke.
to make it, to change the.
Yes, but then I would just go in and blur it exactly the same way that I did my other one. And I shifted it too far because once you blur it, some of those shifting problems actually disappear. In this case, it does need to be adjusted more. Once you have these mountains in bokeh, they actually tend to get like a little white line naturally around them, even if you get the actual sunset that's actually there. If you do work in print competitions, the judges will call you out for it, even if it's naturally occurring, which is ridiculous because it was actually there. I'm like, that's what they look like. I used a flash this time. I brought a light. That's what it looked like. But you can actually come in. That's one of my most favorite tricks is if you grab this little lasso tool, that's probably the actual term, and you make a line around where the edge is. Like, let's say there was a huge halo on here. There's not a huge, huge halo. And we come up to, it's not filter. It is filter. Come down to filter and then other all the way down here at the bottom. And it's either maximum or minimum. It kind of depends on which way your mask is going, whether you're on the white or whether you're on the black. And I honestly can't remember which way is which. I think this was the right one, maximum on this one. So when you do this and you shift this edge, it's actually shifting however many pixels. And you have to make sure that this says roundness instead of squareness, or it will make square pixels. So roundness in most cases, I'm sure that there's a use for the square, but I don't use that. And then you just come in here and you shift it just a tiny bit at a time until you're like, oh, look, now my halo is gone. And you hit okay. It's such a fast way to deal with halos. The other way that you can come in and deal with the halo is to make a new layer. And come up here and change your blending mode to darken. And you can actually grab your clone stamp tool. And in this case, because we're working on multiple layers, we want to make sure that the clone stamp is sampling all layers right here. And we're going to pick the spot that we want it to sample. So let's say like right here on the very edge of the rock, you would make it really, really tiny and we no longer have a halo. Let's do it over here. well, maybe we do still have a tiny halo. But if you come in here, all it's gonna do is darken that area. Am I on darken? Yeah. And you're very gently going to go along the edge, which I am not gently going along the edge at all. I don't have this Wacom tablet set up on this computer. It's like really wonky. So you would come in and just and because it's set on darken, it's not gonna touch anything that is darker than it. So this rock right here, it would only get the halo. If you were doing that, I would actually pull this layer probably way down here to the original so that it's not touching the sky at all. So the order of your layers would make a difference in that case too. Okay, we could edit this picture all day because I've done it 30 times and it gets better every time, but
Right.
we will run out of time. And I wanted to leave a few minutes in case there are any questions. Do we have any questions about the boobs, Corey?
I prefer the other word. What were the words that you said? A filter, other, if you.
Ooh, yep.
If you have-
So you would grab your little halo. So we have one right here. We're gonna grab our halo. Let's grab it. And we're gonna go to filter.
Yeah.
And then other. And then depending on whether you're on a black or a white mask, this isn't gonna work because I'm not even on the right layer. You're gonna either hit maximum or minimum. So maximum is gonna stretch it out a little bit. Minimum's gonna suck it in per pixel. So if I pull up the box, it's gonna show it, but we're not on the right layer. We were on that blank layer. So you have to make sure you're on the actual mask itself.
And you would, again, if you're spending more time and so forth than that, like.
Oh,
The
gosh,
two
yeah.
people that are in the background, I mean, and
Oh, I
I've
would
seen
now
you do
generative
this with a
fill
lot
them.
more time, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the thing. Like I used to take lots of time to rebuild these rocks. And I'd pull some rocks from over here and I'd put them over here, but now honestly, generative filling these people out is so easy, especially if it's a smaller space. Again, this is not for print competition. This is for your clients. If you want to spend the time to do it, by all means, knock yourself out and spend your time to do it. But for me, when it already takes me 2 hours to retouch one portrait, this is a huge time saver because they're just gone. And that's fairly accurate. And then you can go through and pick which one that you like. If you don't like any of them, you can do it again. I have put hats on people and things with generative fill.
And I guess the point here too is like a lot of the things that she's doing here, when she talks about print competition and what's allowed and what isn't, like within our rules, we do allow
yeah.
some level of
know
generative
what you
fill to fill in just
Mhm.
things such as this. Now, if you're gonna do it way open and you make a whole different scene or whatever and so forth than that with generative fill, then that gets a little bit outside of our boundaries and so
Right.
forth than that. But like removing that, doing the sky replacement, doing some of these other things are allowed. Now, if she goes through and with AI,
Like-
creates a bear that's sneaking up on this poor couple or this poor family.
Well, that would have been
That-
so
that might be
exciting,
quite-
honestly, for me.
That may be questionable, right? And if
Right.
he uses AI to create, like, say, Bigfoot sneaking up on them, then there's
Oh.
definitely gonna be some questions, right? But
I mean,
but
that
what
would
she's
be-
done here would
yeah.
be acceptable.
Yeah, I should have checked what your guys' rules were ahead of time, I've actually entered, but it wasn't anything from AI. Various competitions do all kinds of different things, so just read the rules, because I don't actually know on every competition what is and isn't allowed. I get that question a lot. Actually, I'm like, I didn't read the rules. I have no idea.
And for us, I mean, because it comes
Yeah.
up from time to time, but
Oh, yeah,
AI that is like removing some things or
Right.
doing a few things like that, that is within the guidelines of what we are. If you're using it to create a whole, like you said, if you
right.
put something
create
in there that
Bigfoot.
isn't in the scene. I
For
think
me, it would be Bigfoot.
There would be Bigfoot for
Yeah.
sure. But if you're putting something in there that is not, part of that scene and adding to it, then that becomes change. Adding a little bit of the fill on, if somewhere in your frame, or like we've talked about before, like the perspective, if you're changing it and you
Mhm.
need to fill that in, those things are.
Yeah. Well, and you could use AI to do all of the things that I do. I still like to have my own creative freedom of taking my mountains however I shot them, because sometimes I actually will take the other view. So if you turn around from this spot,
Right.
there's a whole other mountain range on that side. And I like to have that creative process of what do I want to put in there? from the actual day that it was. A lot of times my actual sky replacement is from the same day. It's just that I took it with my phone real quick.
Yeah, would you lighten the couple here?
It's way darker on here than it actually is in real life.
So like the other picture we saw, the couple was a lot lighter.
Typically, it's gonna be that the people are shot at the density, their brightness that I want them shot at, and then I'm darkening the background is what I'm doing a lot of the time. So a lot of the time, my finishing touch, and I actually do it in Lightroom, is I select background in Lightroom, and I bring down my density just a tiny bit, and I up my saturation. Which makes that couple, that's what makes them pop out like they looked in the other set. I don't know if I can pull up Lightroom.
And as you
don't think I
mentioned
have it on
earlier
here.
too, in that you're photographing your subjects
Right.
a
They're-
little bit earlier while the light is still looks
Yeah.
kind of bad back there on the mountains, and then you're waiting for the light to go
Right,
down.
because if I waited for
and then
this
you're-
light that we have on the mountains right here, they would be totally dark because
Right.
I'm not using any external lighting. But for me, that's part of my process too, of just like, I am a painter by trade. I was a painter in high school and through my 20s and into my 30s. And so for me, doing this process is very natural for me. If you don't know how to do this or that doesn't come naturally to you, take a light because that would be the easier way to get the same result.
Right.
Do you, on your skies, I mean, I used to load my skies into the Photoshop program. But it got to be so slow that I had so many skies that I'll just take whatever sky is in there.
Oh, yeah, you
make
can
the
do it that way
masks,
too.
and then just throw away the thing and.
Well, I have done that too, where I don't want to start over. It's more just because of laziness for
Yeah,
me,
I mean,
but
I mean, you can have a huge file of
Yeah.
skies. that you
I
just
have
open
my
in Photoshop.
favorites loaded, but oftentimes I'm making the folder. You can turn this guy over here into a smart object. And then you can just
But I'm
replace
saying you
it,
can
yeah.
do it Whatever map, whichever sky you
Yeah.
have there, just throw it out and then
And then
insert it into that map.
Right.
Throw in a new one, yeah.
Yep.
Now, what's gonna happen when you do that though, is if you ran the program with a blue sky and you are using this foreground color toggle right here. So some of our coloring has come from this foreground color toggle that came on when we did our sky replacement. So it takes the colors in your sky
Mhm.
and it makes an adjustment layer for
Right.
the foreground colors.
But you can also.
You can
that
turn it off, yeah.
And then create a new.
You can, yeah.
Levels. Or
Right.
whatever.
That would be the only thing to just be aware of, that if you are gonna do it that way, and I have done it lots of times, mostly again out of just laziness, because I can do it faster than I can load the skies. Just be aware that this foreground color and then also this foreground lighting is making a difference on your image as well.
Right.
And that's where those people got darker too, Jane, is because this foreground color little toggle thing is on. They were actually a lot brighter. A lot of times I turn that off. I don't actually love the foreground color little
Adjustment.
option.
And you could probably go into that and adjust
You
the
can.
opacity too, if you
Yeah.
wanted it to be less.
A lot of times I brush it off of the
Right.
people. I might leave it on the scene, but I brush it off of my people.
I'd like to hear that you took this and then saved it back into Lightroom and then did the
Oh,
adjustments in the Lightroom.
I start in Lightroom, I open in Photoshop, and I finish back in Lightroom again. And I know it saves a giant TIFF file. So if you're weird about storage, like this might not work for you because it is gonna save you a giant TIFF file every single time. But for me, I like to do all of my finishing touches. So vignettes I do in Lightroom and any little tiny adjustments I make in Lightroom after.
So much. easier.
All
And you do
Lightroom
it,
is
you
so much
do it
easier.
everything on lock, don't you?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
never spoken to me. You can.
Yeah,
Same
I,
thing.
yeah,
My mentor, yeah, it is the same thing in theory. It's just, this was the process I learned. It's like Nikon, like I started on Nikon, so it's the right choice. I don't know what's wrong with the rest of you, but Michael's on my team, Corey's on my team, Bill's not on my team.
You still can.
You left.
He was on our team, weren't
He
you?
wasn't.
We've had this conversation before, but yeah, no, I give everybody a really hard time about the camera choices. It really makes absolutely no difference. It's just one of the icebreakers during my classes that I'm like, what team are you on? Is it the right team? That totally does not count.
And then, and especially with what Lightroom has come up with in, say, the last year and a half. And
Oh,
even,
Lightroom's
even
fantastic.
more recently here in the last, I'll say 6 weeks or whatever, and that, some of the advancements there
Oh,
when it
it's
comes
so
to
good.
masking and when it comes
Yeah.
to some of those things. 3 years ago, when you talk about going back into there and then taking your subject
You
and
wouldn't
darkening the
have needed
background
to
and so
do.
forth. But today.
Lightroom has made my life so much easier, and their masking is far superior than Photoshop's. Don't ask me
Yes.
why, because Adobe made them both, and I don't know why, but Lightroom's masking is fantastic.
It's really improved quite a bit. So
Mm-hmm.
that workflow that you talked about, Lightroom, then into
It is
Photoshop, and
Lightroom,
then
Photoshop,
Lightroom,
actually.
that's-
It's, yeah.
The round trip is the kind of a thing.
Well, and once I exported something from Photoshop a very, very long time ago, and it exported in the wrong color space, and I never could figure out how to fix that. And so that's how that started. That's why I did it that way. Because Lightroom was exporting in the right color space, because I got a print that was like green and gray. It was horrible. I mean, I just reprinted it, but still I was like, I don't know how to fix this. So I just did it
CMYK or
yeah.
something like that, or put
I
it in.
didn't know. I
I
don't know what it did, but.
Right.
But yes, in reality, this might actually only take me 30 minutes. And I would go in and retouch skin and everything, but we just don't have time to do all of those things. But I did want to show the mountains because it is one of the things people see my work and they know that it's mine because there's all these glorious mountains everywhere. Well, that's because I'm putting them there.
And
I mean-
they're there, but not exactly.
They're there.
Right.
And
there.
my clients remember them
Right.
being
They're
there,
over there.
but they're
Right,
just over,
right.
well, they're over there. When I'm looking at, they're over there. They're in the wrong place. It's because Garden of the Gods does not want to adjust to me.
Right.
They
That's
don't
right.
know.
That's right.
They should have moved. So yeah, my teaching series is called Moving Mountains for that reason, but. Okay, now you know, and
Can I
Corey knows
say
about
your
the boobs. Oh, yeah. No, well, no, because I have the other slide. I do have a class coming up. It is 2 days and we're gonna do all of the things in actual detail in July. And there's a little link on the PDF, but I don't like doing self-promotion. I even asked Michael, I'm like, oh, but you could totally say no, because.
No.
But if
that's your
anybody is
program
wanting
and
to
it's,
learn more, I priced it very low because I honestly believe in uplifting the entire community. The higher we all are, the better the entire industry is.
Even Canon people.
Even, I guess, if you want to come, Phil, but just because it's you though.
Bruce is gonna let me cameras.
Oh, perfect. I have like 5 cameras. I can bring an extra. I don't get rid of gear either, so I have a hoarding problem with my gear.
but I will say this is that, and to this point, what we saw here is pretty high level, Photoshop, techniques and so forth and that.
Oh,
You know,
this is
going
the
in when
tip
she
of
goes
the
into the
iceberg.
skin retouching and
Yeah.
that, there's like more and more of that. And then when you talk about these Photoshop skills and then some of the ones that she does as far as the composites where you have 200 layers of all, you know, matching shadows and light and things like that.
That's a whole
It's pretty
situation.
impressive what her Photoshop skills are.
You're not gonna.
Well, thank you. We're not gonna do compositing, no, because that's its own class, yeah. Well, I mean, this is a tip into, or it's just a little peek into compositing in reality, yeah. Okay, I
Any other
know,
questions?
I'm like, I tried to stay on time.
Okay.
I don't-
No,
did my best.
this was perfect. This was fantastic. Thank you once again, everybody, for coming. Those that are online, I can't see you right now with the
I
shared
don't know how
screen,
to
but
make it happen either.
thank you, everybody, for joining. Hopefully, I know I learned quite a bit, and I've seen the demonstration of this before, but each time I see it,
Look, I did it.
I pick up some new skills in that. So thank you. Yeah, it looks like a few more people came in later on. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. So again, the next meeting we have is July 3rd, and that is the competition, and the themes are high key and environmental portraits. So, and when she talked about this right here, again, the environmental portraits, you could take some of these things that we just learned tonight and incorporate those into, photographing people, but that is people that are doing, their own thing and so forth and that, whether it's part of their profession, whether it's, doing something in a fireman in front of a fire truck or whatever it might be and so forth. But that will be the theme that we'll have. And like I say, high key is the other part of it. So we will be doing that on July 3rd. Okay,
Good night, everybody.
great.
Thank
Good night,
you,
everybody.
guys.
Thank you for showing up. Thank you.